All right, folks, today I want to have a look at this. This is the Frankford Arsenal Universal Precision Case Trimmer. Universal trimming from a drill. This is what it looks like, chucked up into a drill. And let's go ahead and buzz through a couple 223 cases. There it is. See, pretty darn quick and pretty easy. While we got it up close to the camera here, let's go ahead and tear it apart. First, we got this little adjustment cap. You might see the little collet inside of there. What that does is it sets how tightly it grabs your brass whenever you're putting it into the end there. So if we tighten this up a little bit, or actually if we tighten it a little bit too much, you can see the brass is a little bit of a pain in the butt to get in and out. So you want it loose enough to where your cases go in and out nice and easy, but tight enough to where it aligns it properly. That's kind of what that part's all about, is alignment. There's what that piece looks like, if I can keep hold of it. And we've got several different sizes for different size cases. This is the smallest one that's used for stuff like 223 cases. Now the other piece that already fell out, it was in there, I promise, just like that. Yeah, let me pull that out. Now what this piece does is this is where the neck of your case goes through, and it sits against the shoulder. So that's your reference point with this kind of trimmer, is everything's measured from the shoulder to the case mouth. So trimming brass with a trimmer like this, you need to make sure that all of your cases are resized pretty close to the same, right? So that your base to shoulder measurements are about the same, or you'll get varying case lengths out of a trimmer like this that references the, off of the shoulder. So shoulder to case mouth. Hopefully that makes sense. So these two pieces, the kit comes with several of them, and you use the appropriate one for the cartridge you're trimming. We'll look at the rest of that here in just a second. The next part, you'll see the scale here running around, and I guess this little index here is what you're supposed to look off of. So it is marked in 1/1000th increments, and I've found it to be pretty darn close. So if you want to change your adjustment 3 more thousandths or whatever, you do it right here. So this part right here is a lock ring, and there we go. Once we loosen it up, then this part spins in and out, and then you lock it down wherever you want. So let's go ahead and just take this part all the way off and drop it in the floor. You know what? One of these parts, I'm going to manage to get it off of here without dropping it. So yeah, there's that piece. Not much going on here, which camera's too dark for you to see anyway. All it is just a housing, couple big holes in the side to allow the trimmed brass to fall out. So there's that, and it reveals the actual cutter. Now this is the industry standard style of cutter. So it's threaded, you just spin it on and off. There it is right there. Replacements for most trimmers, like the RCBS Trim Pro, uses this exact same threading and style. You can upgrade to like a carbide one that is supposed to last longer, all that crap, so you got plenty of options with the trimmer head, but I've found these to last a long time. I mean, you're trimming brass, for crying out loud. It's pretty soft metal. It's not going to be dulling blades very much. So that's pretty much all of the parts that can be removed. That lock ring can be removed, I guess, but we don't need to do that. Let me go ahead and pop it out of the drill. What you got here on the back end? Yeah, you got some bearings. Bearings seem to be pretty nice. This thing spins really well. So yeah, that's really all that's going on there. Now the kit comes in a attractive little plastic case. There we go. Which is, a pretty nice case. There are your additional collets and your additional shoulder size thingies we'll look at here in just a second, but back to the case. Pretty standard plastic hinges and all of that, but it seems to be pretty well made. And flip it upside down, jiggle it around, and this stuff stays in place. So pretty nice size, and it stores the trimmer away very nicely. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and put that guy right there and that guy right there. So that's all of our fiddly parts. And I went ahead and screwed this guy back together so I can show you how it goes down in here somewhere. I kind of had to fiddle around with the end cap and the lock screw or whatever to get it to line up with these. It sits down in there like that, all put together. But there it is, everything in the case. That's the way it'll come. Now there's a convenient little chart here on the top lid of the case that shows the size of your different shoulder bushings and the size of your different case body collets. So you can see, like, the small one we were using is about 223 size, the medium is your 308 to 30-06 size, and then the big one is the Magnum size. And then it gives you guidelines about where the shoulder bushings should stop on the shoulder. Let me grab that small one we were using. I think you already kind of saw this a little bit. It's supposed to land around the middle of the shoulder. So if we jump up to the next size up here with this 223 case, you'll see that would kind of work, but just barely. It's too far out on the edge of the shoulder, and I guess you get more repeatable results if you're near the center of the shoulder, I guess. And I'll tell you what, speaking of repeatable results, those couple of pieces I trimmed just a few minutes ago, let's give these a quick look. I think I had this set up right at 1.750. No, maybe a little bit short, 1.746. Next one's 1.746. The next one's 1.747. The next one's 1.746. So you can see it does a pretty good job as far as repeatability, but these, you know, all of this brass was sized in the exact same sizing die at the same time with the same setting, and they all come out pretty darn close to one another. Just kind of give you an idea of what you're left with after trimming, right? It just cuts them flat, and it does leave them pretty gnarly. You're going to need to do your deburring and chamfering to clean up all of that nonsense, which is pretty normal. So nothing to really complain about there. Now, something to complain about a touch would be, okay, something like 300 Blackout. That, I mean, it barely has a shoulder. So if we go to our kit and grab the one there on the case, I don't know if you can see it, but it does say, what does it say, 284 to 30. Let's see how this guy fits on here. It does stop, definitely does land on that shoulder. But the problem is there's just not much of a shoulder to speak of. So I bet if we trim a handful of these, we might see a little bit more variation in our lengths. So I'll tell you what, let's run through that. Let's go ahead and set this up for 300 Blackout, and we will trim a couple cases. So the end comes off and in goes that part with the, yep, so one side's tapered. That goes down toward the cutter head thingy. And then of course we're going to need the small collet again. This is the same case size as the 223 we were just loading, right? So that's going to be the same. And we screw on the end cap. What I normally do is go ahead and just set a piece of brass down in there and then tighten this up until I can feel the collet getting tighter around the case. And then once it feels, yeah, that's a little bit too tight, back it out just a hair and we're good to go. Now, this is the other problem. This isn't so bad when compared to my Frankford Arsenal case trim and prep center. With 300 Blackout, you do have a little bit of case left to grab a hold of, which is good. Yeah, so this guy here, this is my Frankford Arsenal case trim and prep center. And you'll notice that it's a very similar sort of deal. They're pretty much identical. But if I line them up to where the two cutter heads are at about the same height, about right there, you'll see that there's just a little bit more room. The cartridge sticks out a little bit more. The piece of brass sticks out a little bit more than it does on the old one. So that's definitely an advantage of this guy. The other big advantage is the case trim and prep center has got left-handed threads for the adjustments, and my brain is just too frickin' small to deal with left-handed threads. Like smoke is rolling out of my ears every time I'm trying to adjust this. And all of the adjustments on this guy are standard threading. So now that we've got our collet and shoulder thingy in there, what we want to do, or the way I normally do it, is go ahead and put a case down inside of there. And if we look through the little hole, you'll see room between the case mouth and the cutter, which I'm going to need to make the settings on my camera ridiculous so you can see them. Okay, is that bright enough? You see that gap between the case mouth and the cutting head. And this is where you can start with kind of a coarse adjustment. You go ahead and just move your cutter head up to right by the case mouth and then tighten down and kind of use that as a starting point. All right, so back in the drill, let's see what the current length of this brass is. Yeah, this piece is 1.364. I don't even remember what the trim length is on 300 blackout, but that's fine. We'll go ahead and we'll just go ahead and destroy these pieces. That one's 1.356, 1.363. I'll tell you what, let's set the cutter to cut them down to 1.350. And like I say, that is not the real trim length for 300 blackout. That's just a number I made up. So let's put it in and see if we're hitting the cutter yet. Doesn't look like we are. Actually, yes, we are. Just a little bit. Okay. Yep, case mouth looking shiny. Definitely got hit. 1.354. So let's go down 4 thousandths. So if we find our index thingy there, and it is pointing pretty close to 35, just a little bit below 35. And we want to screw this in to shorten it down. Now this is one little bit of a quirk. It looks like it is 38 thousandths per revolution, which is a little bit weird. So what, we needed to go 4? Is that right? Yeah, we needed to go about 4. So we want to go up to about the 1 mark, or just shy of the 1 mark. So let's loosen up our lock ring and spin that guy around just short of the 1. Nope. A little fiddly to get tight, I guess, especially when you're working around a camera. Is that pretty close? Yeah, that is pretty close. So let's buzz a couple more thousandths off this guy, hopefully. And see if that put us about where we want to be. Oh, well, look at that. Perfect. Let's go through a couple more here. See, and the other problem with this brass, which I just kind of realized, is I haven't resized it. I just kind of grabbed it out of a bin of blackout brass, and this next piece I put in there isn't actually wanting to trim. But I think we're all right here, because I've got, I don't know if you noticed that piece I was trimming earlier had some Sharpie marks on it, and it was red. And I've got 2 more pieces that were red. And I remember from long ago, whatever test we were doing, these should have been treated the same. So let's try the other 2 that are Sharpied red and see what sort of numbers we get. There we go. That one definitely chopped off a little bit. Same thing with this next piece. Now, whenever you're trimming, you definitely feel like once it's done trimming, you know, you hear your drill speed up and you feel the resistance lighten up. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's pretty easy to tell whenever it's done trimming. So let's see what the numbers here are. 1.352. This was a terrible test. I don't know why I didn't prepare better with some brass that I had prepped. 1.350. It was a bit of a last minute addition here that I thought of, folks. I just wanted to warn you that something like 300 blackout with that itty bitty tiny little shoulder is a big challenge for a trimmer like this. It does work, but if you're going for right on the money, exactly perfect every piece, you might want to go with a different system that indexes off the base of the case rather than this nearly non-existent shoulder. But this does a pretty good job. I mean, we've seen, yeah, just those couple random pieces I pulled out of a bin, trimmed down to within a couple thousandths of one another. I want to show you one thing here. Yeah, you can see those reverse threads screw me up all the time. Now, I use this trimmer all the time on the Case Trim and Prep Center, and you'll notice that this one has a pilot in it. So this is a 22 caliber pilot. So my 22 brass, whenever I'm trimming on this, comes down and gets aligned into the cutter by that pilot. Now, this did not originally come with a pilot. I pulled this out of my RCBS Trim Pro kit, and this is actually a carbide blade as well that I had for the Trim Pro. And you could get different size pilots and stuff, whatever. That does help stabilize the case a little bit. Whenever you're running it without a pilot, the case does wobble a good bit until it gets right at the end of cutting. When the case shoulder starts to make contact with that metal ring, that kind of starts to center it a little bit better. So definitely not necessary, but just another little upgrade I thought I would mention to you that you could do to either one of these trimmers. Now, the price does seem to be moving around a lot on this kit. Right now, it's going for 80 bucks pretty much everywhere. Checked Amazon, Midway, Mid-South, Natchez. All of them are right around $80 right now. You might wonder, why did I buy it if I already have the Frankford Arsenal Case Trim and Prep Center, which has pretty much the exact same function, but also has a couple rotating spots where you can deburr your case mouths and remove primer pocket crimps and stuff like that right after you've trimmed. Well, way back in 2019, on Black Friday, Midway had a ridiculous deal on these. I got it for $29.99. I've never seen it anywhere close to that before or since. So do not be holding out for that sort of deal. But at 30 bucks, it was worth picking up just to, just to do a video and see how it worked. At $80, the current street price, I don't know if I'd pull the trigger, because right now on Amazon, you can get the whole case trim and prep center for 140 bucks. That's an extra $60, but that's quite a bit more functionality for your $60. Like right now, this 223 brass I'm working on. With this, I need to touch it one time. I trim it, clean up the case mouth, remove the military crimp, and it's done. With this guy, I'm just trimming it, and then once I'm done, I got to touch it again to do those other functions. So I think at the $80 price tag, I'd maybe hold out and save a little bit more. But maybe if you catch it on sale for down around 50, it would make a lot of sense, maybe. I don't know. I guess it all depends on your workflow and what would be the most efficient for you. So I think that's it, folks. Just kind of wanted to give you a quick overview of this guy, let you see it in action. If you've had your eye on one, hopefully I answered your questions. If not, leave them down in the comments and I'll see what I can do. All right, see you guys next time.